all code violations under the Massachusetts State Sanitary Code, minimum standards for human habitation, 105 CMR 410. I would suggest an initial inspection fee be implemented. We would also recommend that all owners of any short-term rental unit property must provide all ownership and management information relative to the rental property to the Leominster Board of Health by completing the landlord registration form, which was adopted on 12/18/2001. This information is beneficial to our office for future complaint issues. We hope the Legal Affairs Committee of the City Council finds our comments useful in their evaluation of this petition. Please feel free to contact our office if you need further information or if anyone would like to discuss our opinion. Third referral is from the Leominster Police Department, from Chief Aaron Kennedy. Councilor Angelini, the Leominster Police Department is entirely in favor of this petition. I have heard from other chiefs in the Commonwealth who have had terrible experiences with Airbnb residences in their residential areas. I am glad the Leominster City Council is tackling this issue before we start having problems that affect our good residents. After reading the petition, the proper checks and balances will be in place for the types of residences in the appropriate zone areas. Respectfully, Aaron F. Kennedy, Chief of Police, Leominster Police Department. The referral from the Planning Board is addressed to Caitlin Huffman, City Clerk, dated January 16, 2024. Regarding Council Petition 25-24 to amend the Leominster City Ordinance by inserting a new section regarding short-term rental units. Dear Caitlin, on January 8th, 2024, the Planning Board voted 6-0 to request more information. The board requests Councilor Peter Angelini, the lead petitioner, to attend the February 5th, 2024 Planning Board meeting at 6:30 p.m. to better explain the proposal and to answer any questions the Planning Board might have. An agenda for the 2/5/24 meeting will be provided to the clerk and to Councilor Angelini the week prior to the meeting. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. So on that, I do have one from the Rob Sidlow, Chief of the Leominster Fire Department, that the clerk will share.
Excuse me, by email with 2 attachments. It says, the email says, Caitlin Pete, sorry you're getting this at the last minute. Please read Deputy Campagna's email and attachments. The fire codes for the 1- and 2-family homes that would rent a room or the whole house would require smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. Once they reach more than 5, they would be classified as a rooming house or hotel. The issue we are having in Leominster is not so much with the Airbnbs, it is with building owners intentionally or unintentionally turning their buildings into illegal rooming houses and converting cellars and top floors into illegal apartments. The fire department is working with the mayor's office on how to address this growing problem going forward. I will keep you updated as to the recommendation that may be forthcoming. Chief Sidlow. And then there's an application for there's a big giant report of different things that they've had to deal with that was attached for fire calls, and then an application for certain types of residences that they have to comply with for fire code.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I think it's important to note the report that you referenced was included with the referral. If you go to page 4 of the report, this is a section regarding a fire that had, I believe, Washington Street, yeah. And the first paragraph says, received updates from SA2 and RAT1 that the house was currently being used as an Airbnb and gave me owner contact information. So there were several code violations of this residence being rented according to this as an Airbnb. And I think I should also note that I have accepted the planning board's invitation and I will attend the February 5th meeting and certainly make a presentation and answer any questions the planning board may have. Currently, we have no protection against these short-term rentals. So obviously the intention of this is to prohibit the practice totally in Residence A and to regulate it in the rest of the city by imposing those things that were referenced by the Board of Health. Both health inspections, building inspections, fire code inspections, a registry of short-term rental properties with a background check, including by the police department, to see if we've had any issues in the past. So all of this would be helpful. I must contend that the building inspector, the building commissioner's position, I think is untenable as far as the lack of staff. Currently, that we know of, that 2 of these units are being advertised for short-term rental within the city currently. The one that the fire department noted would be the 3rd one. So we're not talking about a heck of a lot of work here. So I would hope that their office could accommodate it if this petition is adopted.
Should we clarify that your petition, Mr. Chairman, is not to encourage this activity, but to prohibit it in Residence A? Because it's the exact opposite what the building inspector and the health officer said in their referrals. I think, can you make that clear?
Yes, absolutely. I think, I mean, I was quite shocked, to be perfectly honest with you, when I read the referrals, because if they read the page 3, it clearly states that the practice would be prohibited in Residence A zone. And all those things that they mentioned that were lacking were included in my petition to ensure that the areas of the city where this is permitted, it would be regulated and it would actually be safe for the folks that may engage in the rental. The butters would have to be notified within 300 feet when the person went to the building commissioner's office to get an application to get on the short-term rental registry, as well as the ward councilor would have to be notified electronically as soon as the application was pulled. So the city councilor for that ward would be aware of it before any permits were issued. The abutters would have to be notified, and stringent safety and fire code and health code measures would need to be taken in a background check by the Leominster Police Department. So it's completely opposite of I guess the impression that both the building commissioner and the health director had with regards to the intent of this petition. And that's why I want to be sure that the planning board understands the intent as well. And I will make myself available to do just that.
Okay, I think that helps. In addition, the subcommittee meeting that was held on the 17th, the position of the subcommittee, the legal affairs subcommittee, was to give this further time tonight based on the planning board hearing not being until February 5th, correct?
That's correct, Mr. President.
I'll let you continue to see if any of the members of your committee have anything to add.
Thank you, sir. Let me go to the second member, Mr. Tossi. Councilor Pauline Cormier, do you have anything?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, I'd just like to say what we discussed at the subcommittee meeting was getting further time. There seems to be some misinformation out there that I think we need that time to clarify. So I would support further time.
Thank you very much. Any members of the
Before you check with the other members of the council, we're going to start the meeting. Then I'll ask for a motion to recess. So if you join me in the pledge.
United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll take the roll. I'll now take the roll of the councilors in attendance, starting with Councilor David Cormier.
Present.
Councilor Pauline Cormier. Councilor Frank Ardinger.
Present.
Councilor Angelini.
Present.
Councilor Tossi.
Present.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Present.
Councilor Robbins.
Present.
Councilor Frida. I'm present. All 9 members of the council are in attendance. Does the Vice President have any records to report?
I do, Mr. President. I have reviewed the records from January 2nd and any changes that were requested, and the January 8th records. I find them to be in good order, and unless there's an objection, I'd ask that they be put on.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr.
Yep, thank you very much. I'm fine with the January 8th ones. The January 2nd one, those minutes, though there are a couple of incorrect things that I think really need to be fixed. The one counselor is left out of the vote for the presidential vote, and then the way the vote is recorded just is incorrect. So I'm happy to send those changes to the clerk, and then would like to see them before we vote on them at the next meeting. Thank you.
Recess. So free to have a second.
Second.
Cormier. All those in favor of recess, please recognize the usual manner. Okay, we are in recess. Councilor Angelini, the floor is yours.
Noted Councilor Frida's hand was up, so.
Yeah. Chairman, I think it's also important to note where you took a piece of the fire department incident report and reported it as an Airbnb. If you look further towards the end of the report, it states that the commissioner determined that the building in its current state is being used illegally as a rooming house, even though the owner stated it's an Airbnb. So I think, I mean, if you read the report, it talked about having bedrooms with locks on each bedroom. I mean, I think that's completely different than an Airbnb, the way I look at an Airbnb. I think I would like to see, quite honest, I'm not opposed or for it at this point. But I think this is a big step. If it is something that we would entertain, I would like to see all the parties that have made their referrals come in here to meet with us at the next meeting during the public hearing, have the building inspector come, have the police. I mean, the police chief is in total support because of surrounding communities. I'd like to know if he's got any reports himself yet. It didn't sound like he's had any reports. I went online just to Google Airbnb for Leominster, and I think there were 2 or 3 of them. And if you look at the reviews, I mean, some of them have been hosting them for 8-10 years with no problems. And outside of 1 or 2 maybe mentioning that, you know, the place is a little dirty when they rented it. The rest of them seem to be, I'd go there again, or it's my 3rd time going there. We moved my kids into school, so we use the bill. I guess just looking at and listening to some of the people in the community, if they've got a downstairs basement that has a walkout and they've got it fixed as an apartment, and they can rent it for certain periods of time to help them stay in that home. I think we need to be careful the way we approach this and the way we look at it. Those are some of the concerns I have. I had a chance to talk to a few counselors from other communities this past weekend, and I'm waiting to get a couple of their ordinances to see, you know, what they have, and those that have them and those that don't have it, why they don't have it. So I would like to see us be a little bit more into it with the people that would be involved. You know, the police department, the building inspector, the health department. Have them come here and have a conversation with us so we can ask the questions and see how they truly feel about enforcement or about having this, or whether they think we need it. I would like to do that. I just see it a little bit as an intrusion into private property rights. And as being in real estate, I mean, there's a thin line between government getting involved in somebody's home and, you know, overreach. I don't want to say we haven't had a problem, because we haven't, that I'm aware of. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do something because we haven't had a problem yet. But I think if we're going to do something, we really should look at it and make sure we're doing the right thing for all the people involved. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts, Council. Any other council?
I suspect you're going to want to,
Go to the public.
okay, very good.
Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 25-24? Please just state your name. Come on up, have a seat, and state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Jordan Vashon, and I live at 773 West Street here in town.
In here. Is that on?
No.
Yes.
Okay.
You have to speak loud.
Okay. Is this a little better?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm here to voice my support for the petition to limit short-term rentals here in Leominster. First, I want to take a quick moment to thank the City Council. I became a first-time homeowner in 2023, and now that I've lived here for a year, I can't imagine living anywhere else. I was caught up in the flooding on my commute home on September 11th, and I was impressed by the coordinated response and leadership from city officials and members of the community in the challenging times that followed. I've also been impressed by the accessibility and outreach efforts by city government and officials, whether at rallies to save the maternity unit or at city-sponsored events and festivals. It's great to see our officials put their boots on the ground and take pride in the city. So I wanted to thank you all for that. Now, with regard to the petition, I have a few statements that I prepared to express my support of the proposed ordinance. For some brief context, my husband and I live next door to a property that has been listed on Airbnb since April 2023. The listing was posted the month after we closed on our home, while we were still in the process of moving in. At first, we didn't notice. We were busy packing and unpacking and settling into a new space. And additionally, no one told us that they'd posted their home online. However, the short-term rental became obvious to us over time. The property on which the short-term rental is located was subdivided off an older configuration of our lot many years ago. There's a driveway easement on our property that the owners and guests can access as an alternative to using the front door. This driveway easement has made the presence of the short-term rental even more immediate and impactful to us than it otherwise may have been. It means that whenever the property is rented, which could be as often as every weekend, there are strangers passing over our property. One of the reasons why we bought a house was to settle down and start a family, but the weekly comings and goings of strangers so close to home has made us postpone and reassess these plans. Aside from the issue of proximity, we're also concerned about anonymity. Since we do not operate the short-term rental, we do not know the identities of any of the guests. As mentioned before, many of the guests access the short-term rental via a driveway easement located on our property. If an accident occurred on that part of the driveway, we're concerned about any liability we might have for a stranger's damages. We understand that people use short-term rentals as an opportunity to relax and escape from daily life and responsibilities. This is all well and good at hotels, in resorts, and in vacation hotspots, but anonymity combined with a laid-back vacation attitude causes disruptions for primary residents of an impacted neighborhood. For example, the week before Thanksgiving, a handful of young adults arrived next door to host a birthday party. The listing states that no event should be hosted at the rental and a maximum of 8 guests are allowed. When we got home from visiting my parents that night, we counted 15 vehicles in the driveway. Assuming only one person traveled to the party per vehicle, that's still nearly double the maximum guest count. As recently as this past weekend, we counted 11 guests in the house, again in violation of the rules set by the owners. I believe short-term rentals are detrimental to a neighborhood, especially when the owners do not enforce their own rules. Going back to the example from the week before Thanksgiving, a noise complaint was filed due to guests playing loud music late into the night. At 4 a.m. the next morning, a guest had a burnout on the street in front of our house. Despite residents contacting authorities to address a noise complaint, the guest's disruptive behavior continued after police left the scene. I believe the sporadic nature of short-term renting makes it difficult to maintain peace in a neighborhood. Finally, community is very important to me. It's a trait that I value in Leominster's government and people. It was my expectation when I moved to this neighborhood that I would have abutting neighbors who I could meet, befriend, and trust. This has been the case with all of my neighbors, except, unfortunately, the short-term rental, since the owners aren't around often and the guests change out every weekend. In summary, I believe it's a misuse of zoning to purchase a single-family home and list it as a short-term rental, especially considering the shortage of affordable homes on the market. I believe my neighborhood and the city of Leominster as a whole would be better served when single-family residences are used as long-term homes for families that will participate in, grow with, and enrich the greater Leominster community. Thank you for listening to my experiences and concerns. I hope you support the proposed ordinance.
And
Thank
could
you.
you repeat your address?
Right.
773?
Thank you.
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Teddy McLeod. I also live at 773 West Street. I'm happy to hear that some of the city officials are taking the health and safety aspect of the short-term rental issue seriously. I would like to add my more personal perspective. I am in support of the petition to restrict short-term rentals in the city of Leominster. When we moved to Leominster just under a year ago, it didn't take very long for us to experience the degree of cohesion and community that this city has. I'm speaking of the flooding that occurred in September of last year and seeing the amount of outreach and support from both our community leaders, the governor and the city councilors, as well as our neighbors. It was, a really nice welcome to the city. I grew up in coastal Southern Virginia, a region which is notorious for being hit by hurricanes. So flooding and extreme weather events of the sort are something that I'm used to. And I know that this region of the country doesn't experience those extreme weather events very commonly. So seeing that the response the city had, knowing it was a difficult and kind of new experience was really moving. With that said, I believe short-term rentals should have restrictions placed on them, and here's why. As of now, we have a property adjacent to us in a Class A residentially zoned neighborhood with strangers coming and going week after week after week, as if it were a hotel. Now, we've reached out to and met all of our other neighbors, all of our other adjacent neighbors, and we're making attempts to foster good relationships with them, and we have. I know that fostering good relationships with your neighbors isn't always necessarily easy either. And in some cases, you might have some situation where it's not even possible. It's not a stretch of the imagination to see how living next to a property which you don't know the owners and you're having strangers come and go constantly could create a stressful environment. We've even taken measures to protect ourselves from the liability that comes with strangers coming and going on an adjacent property week after week. We put up a privacy fence to define the boundary between our two properties a little more clearly, and even put up security cameras. Again, all of the guests that are in the property next door to us are anonymous. So we have very little recourse if something were to happen. That money that we spent on those, by the way, is something I much would have rather spent on home renovations, seeing as our house is a late 50s construction. I feel that the measures we've taken to make living next to a short-term rental property are at odds with the type of community that I see in the city of Leominster. I concede that short-term rentals have their place, but I don't believe that place is in Class A residential zones. Thank you for giving me a chance to speak tonight, and thank you to Councilor Angelini for putting forward this petition.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 25-24?
Start yelling here because I can't hear him. I'm losing my hearing.
Yell away.
We want to get back in the council chambers as soon as possible.
Hello? Good. Speak loud. Congratulations. Yeah. Okay. I'm for regulating short.
I'm sorry, sir. Could you state your name?
Oh,
and
yes.
address for the
I
record?
should remember that. Peter Latches, 22 Demarsa Drive, Leominster, Mass. I'm all for regulating short-term residential property. The reason being, I think the neighborhood needs protection. It's up to the landlord to try to protect him and his rental. But the guidelines in this, is it a petition? Yes. Guidelines in this petition are pretty, pretty straightforward, and they protect the other property owners. And that would be a good guideline for the owner of the property. Look at what was in this and adopt it. Now, I'm in Residence A. And when I bought my house, believe it or not, it's over 50 years ago. I was so happy to be in Residence A because it had protections. Over the years, you see kind of people taking shots at Residence A, try to cut into it because it's very restrictive 50 years ago. Some businesses try to get in and things like that. But I believe in 100% protection for Residence A. Now, I'll give you an example. I don't understand why short-term rentals. I believe that in A, I don't believe there should be any short-time rentals. Reason being, I think it's outlined in the residential uses because boarding or lodging houses aren't allowed. Apartments and multifamily dwellings aren't allowed. I consider this rental. It would be like having an apartment or a hotel type of thing. So it's not allowed in the rules, so why would it be allowed in residential A? Also, I'm glad we're having a hearing because I certainly like, can I mention a council's name? Oh, wish that large. I wish I talked to Councilor Frida before I came here because I do have questions. I would say you're more of an expert because you sell property. I'm just astounded that there'd be anybody renting property in Leominster on short term. I cannot understand that. I'd have to discuss it with you. And how many are there? But I know there are problems with renting this. I've heard horror stories. I've read horror stories. But usually they're near vacation areas where people want to go and they want to go huge lake or recreation. The lodge they have in, where's that? Wolf Lodge? Yeah, Great Wolf Lodge. They advertise that they can go skiing here. And so I understand that. But what I don't understand is why there's not that many places, attractions, unless that skiing area is the only thing I can think of. But I believe that by tweaking this or looking at this, I still have questions, like I said to Claire Frida. I still have questions I'd like to ask her more about it. I don't think there's going to be that many of these type of things going on, short-term rentals. So I hope that there is an ordinance to protect the neighborhood. It only makes sense to me. And if there's some tweaking, some people have good ideas of what they could do on this whole petition. I think they should all work together and work it out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Latches. Back to the audience one more time. Is there anyone in attendance that would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 25-24? The second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 25-24? And for the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak in favor of In opposition to petition 2520-24? Seeing none, Mr. President, I'd like to keep this public hearing open.
Fair enough. Okay,
Thank you.
welcome. You can go right into your 650 hearing, 22-24.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, this is the public hearing of the Legal Affairs Committee, petition 22-24. Pavenzi and Donovan, attorneys at law, and 10 registered voters request a zoning change at 435 Lancaster Street, parcel 433-1. This petition was given regular course back in November 13th, 2023. The public hearing 12/11/2023, and it's been continued to this evening. I have the petitioner here and his attorney. Good evening, gentlemen. Could I get perhaps a motion for a recess so we could?
We are in recess.
Yeah.
Okay, I stand corrected. Mr. Pavenzi,
Yes, thank you.
would you care to proceed with your presentation?
Yes, thank you. For the record, Tom Bavenzi, I represent one of the sponsors of this proposed zoning amendment, Gateway Business Center. With me tonight is the manager, Steve Boucher. So just by way of clarification, and I think I passed out earlier tonight, and I left 2 sheets of the ordinance as it currently is in Leominster with you. And one of those is the table of uses, and that on the top of that, this is a section of it, says institutional uses, and you'll see 2/3 of the way down is residential uses. And this, in broken up by districts, one of the districts is business B, and it's denoted BB on this. And you'll notice that in the business B section today, what's allowed under the ordinance are apartments, multifamily dwellings, and those uses, they require special permits from the planning board as well as site plan approval. So that is required today, and there's no request of a change in that being requested here tonight. There is no restriction relative to locations of those. And so again, anytime an owner in a business B district would propose to have a residential use, that would be authorized by the issuance of a special permit from the planning board, and all the regular procedures that the planning board uses in issuing and considering special permits, including placing conditions on it. They can grant the special permit, they could deny the special permit, or they could place conditions on the use, and what would happen within that. That exists today, and that wouldn't change. It also requires site plan approval from the planning board. So in addition to the special permit, the applicant would have to obtain site plan approval, which is a little bit more particular to the site as far as lighting, aesthetics, environmental, things like that. There's another section of the zoning, and I've also included that on page 43, and that's the narrative under section 22-24. It says business B district, and although it's denoted BA, it actually is the BB. And you'll notice under 24.3, subsection 24.31, allowed uses, and it says the residential uses in the BB district are not permitted on the ground or street level, but are permitted on the upper levels. So what this petition seeks to do is to harmonize these 2 provisions and make all residential uses available at locations within the business B district upon issuance still of a special permit from the planning board and upon issuance of a site plan approval from the planning board. So with that in mind, the actual language, and although the nomenclature here tonight says that it's seeking a zone change or zoning ordinance amendment relative to this property, in fact, it would apply to all business B district properties throughout the city. So any property today has the right, if you're in business B, to go and obtain a special permit for residential use within that district without restriction to location on the table. And then it would also have that narrative section of the ordinance kind of harmonized or kind of put that together so that it would apply the same way. In the language that we're requesting, essentially, we just say that one sentence, residential uses in the BB district are not permitted on the ground and street level, but are permitted on upper levels. What we do is we say delete that one sentence and add the sentence, residential uses in the BB district are permitted with a special permit from the planning board. So all it does is it just kind of makes what's in the narrative the same as what's in the table of uses. The protections afforded the community are still there today, as they will be in the future. If someone wants to take the opportunity, they make a proposal, would like to have residential uses in this site. It's still subject to the special permitting process of the planning board. The property sponsor, Gateway Business Center, you're probably familiar with it, is the Gateway Business building and the commercial properties located right behind it at 435 Lancaster Street, which is owned by Gateway Business Center right now. The building in the front will be staying the same. So that is an old 3 to 4 story brick building, architecturally very nice. It has in it today a restaurant, a health center, offices. Those are all going to stay the same. Behind that building, and this is where if this was to be adopted, my client would afford himself of the opportunity of going in front of the planning board. There is currently trucking businesses and other commercial sites. That would be renovated or changed so that it would become new residential buildings. In a new residential building of 2, 3, or 4 stories, there'll be elevators in it. And this is common in most residential buildings. You would have residents on the first floor. So you have a brand new building, you have residents on the first, second, and third floor of these buildings. You would harmonize, in this part of the site plan approval process, all of these uses would be mixed in a sense that you'd have some of the existing commercial uses would stay the same on the older historic building and that fronts on Lancaster Street. Certain new apartment buildings behind that, which would not be visible from Lancaster Street, but would be incorporated into a kind of a community sense plan units development, and with nice landscaping, lighting, and every other criteria or amenities that the planning board would request. So that would be where people would be able to reside. They'd have the usage of the commercial buildings still on the site. And then maybe some of those units would have commercial also on the first floor. There could be small little offices or things like that. Again, that's down the road. That's part of the special permitting process. And that would be dependent on, what basically the market was at the time, as well as the needs of the community, as well as other land use development schemes that are appropriate to be considered whenever you propose any kind of development. So what we're requesting the council to consider is a modest change. It's to allow the consideration of having residential uses on the ground and street level in the Business B district throughout the community. Again, subject to all the safeguards that exist today.
Thank you, Attorney Bavenzi. When I looked at this petition initially, I got to be honest, I have this reaction that's, every 5 years or whatever the city goes out, we hire a consultant, a company that comes in, we review the zoning, we engage in the public hearing process to solicit input from business owners, property owners, residents. Then we draft accordingly. We make changes to our zoning. So it seems to me when you look at 24.3.1, the intent was to allow residential units with the commercial on the first levels. And it would make a lot of sense if the building was on a road frontage. I think the commercial tenants would want exposure on that first floor where you'd have display windows or appropriate signage that would probably increase the traffic to those businesses. Where these units will be in the rear of the facility, I can understand perhaps hesitancy to put commercial on the first floor, but is there some way we could be guaranteed or ensure that the spirit of the BB district is sort of upheld, where we get some kind of commercial
Right, so,
participation, you know, at some level. I don't know what it, maybe it's 25%. I don't know.
so in this situation, that's guaranteed just because of the existing buildings that are there, the restaurant, the health center, offices that are not going to change. Building, the big brick building in the front is not going to be demolished or replaced. And like you said, those are the features, those commercial businesses are visible from the street. Ones in the back would not be. One of the things that the council has assurance of, and this is kind of you're passing a constitution here in the ordinance, and to try to get down into the nitty gritty. One of the things that the council has the assurance of is that there still is the special permit process for any property that would want to propose residential uses. It's a use that's allowed only by special permit. And so when you're trying to craft something to fit all of these possible scenarios, like in this situation, there's more of an assuredness that there still will be some commercial because there is commercial, and they're not going to knock a restaurant down or a health center down or offices down and replace those. When you build it just so happens that when you build the units that you're not visible from Lancaster Street behind that, and these are going to be integrated into some kind of villagey concept of mixed use, you leave open the possibility that some of that floor would be residential or it could be commercial. So what we're asking the council to consider is kind of a normal bylaw. And when you look at the two, you have a table of uses that says one thing, and you have a narrative that says something else. We're just trying to, and I'm not sure the exact how this came about, but to harmonize them doesn't detract from good land use planning, where a particular site would warrant, a particular site may not warrant any residential whatsoever in the business peak district. And the planning board might say, for this site, we don't see where they apply sound land use planning techniques and considerations whenever they're doing a site type of thing. They may say in another thing, in this case, we're going to impose the condition for this permit is that none of the site that's visible from such and such a distance of the street shall have residences on the ground level or the upper level. I mean, on the street level. So I think as a practical matter, it makes sense to allow the natural, like what the state law has special permitting guidelines. It's uses that are in harmony with the existing neighborhood. Every neighborhood's a little different. It's uses that comport with the purpose of your ordinance and bylaw. So that's kind of a case-by-case situation. And I can understand, you don't want to give up control of something, but at the same time, it makes sense to allow the flexibility for some sound land use planning. So once you start tweaking, it makes it more difficult to try to come up with a universal thing that would make sense in every situation, other than saying, as it is now, let the planning board, have the authority to issue or not to issue a special permit, either with or without conditions, any of which could be the dimensions of the property, the number of units, the lighting, any kind of landscaping that they would like to see, access, all of these types of things that are typical in the development of any site. But I think with that in mind, that kind of does follow the spirit of the ordinance and saying it's really what is in harmony, what's good for the community. And things change over time. Residential uses today are of a high priority. There has been changes in the office formats based on the pandemic and whether offices are being utilized as they were in the past. Once again, this gives the planning board that flexibility to look on a case-by-case basis what makes sense, what's a good land use planning. And then also the developer, can work with the planning board specifically to develop these criteria, to develop these expectations and site conditions.
If I may. So a preliminary study that's been done for a project like this on this property for myself, I can't speak to other business owners, but the amenities of having some office space in the original Gateway brick building, the restaurant, the fitness center is a big amenity to this project. And to cut that out would be I'd be shooting myself in the foot. So there is a full intent on this project to leave a high percentage of the Gateway building, the original building on the street. With that, it may be in excess of 20%. I don't know, 25%. And the other thing being said is on that particular building, and I've lived it for 20 plus years, because we have no on-street parking and no, it was created as an office building for DuPont. We don't attract like a type of commercial business that would warrant like in and out business, getting the restaurant to go there. We kind of lucked out and they, seem to be somewhat successful because I think it's a restaurant, but I don't think we could put like a pastry shop or a barber shop. We have those amenities across the street in our strip mall, being the hair salon, the pizza place. So it becomes a walkable, sustainable community with the exception of that across the street, big pizza. But we have the bank. So I guess my story is the full intent of this project is to keep a certain amount of commercial in the brick building. In the back buildings, they probably wouldn't work so much. And we've been having a hard time, obviously, with the office space since COVID. We just can't seem to keep tenants or they work from home. So that's really the looking to the future with this property.
Well, I'm sure as you gentlemen are aware, if the council goes down this path and we adopt this, obviously it won't just impact you, it will impact everyone else in that BB district. So I think it's important that perhaps your site is suitable for this development, but perhaps others aren't. So, I mean, I'd certainly, I even though obviously saying the criteria would trigger site plan review, and I know that there's a list criteria. More new parking spaces, an increased number of spaces, 25% or more parking spaces, creation of 10,000 square feet of new gross floor area on a single lot. So, but another site may not meet that criteria.
No,
so,
Mr. Chairman, I want to clarify that. The table of uses absolutely requires site plan approval, no matter what. No matter what. If it could be one unit,
Correct.
If you're going to convert in the business B anything to residential, you're going to need site plan approval. So that you're right. There's a whole bunch of things that trigger site plan approval, but I'm comfortable with their representation that there or anywhere else in the city, site plan approval is an automatic based on the table of uses.
I agree with that, Mr. President. Thank you. Yeah.
We go to other members of legal affairs, see if they have any questions. Councilor Tossi, do you have anything? No. Pauline Cormier?
Yeah, just quickly, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said it is us, this body, relinquishing control over the zoning and leaving it to the planning board to make sure that what we see and what our thoughts are in the future are, and turning that over basically to the planning board. I don't necessarily have a problem with it, but I'm going to look for a little more information on my own because I think it is it's a big give for us. It's a big.
So one of the things to address that a little bit. So obviously, you have a report that from the planning board unanimously has presented that to the city council, has unanimously supported this proposal, this amendment. Granted, that's the planning board. So the planning board, being in charge of issuing the site plan approval as well as the special permit. However, we also did appear in the housing committee in Leominster. We appeared in front of them and they unanimously supported. And so one of the things you're looking at is you're going from the possibility, like commercial uses, like what's at this site today, it would be indicative of many type of commercial uses like trucking. They're more intensive as a general rule than residential. So to move to a situation where you give any board the option, not the requirement, but the option to use a less deleterious, use, I think is not a movement in the wrong direction, so to speak. So they have the option in today's market. Residential needs are great in the Commonwealth, in the community, all throughout the state. So to give any permitting authority the flexibility, not the requirement, but just saying, look at, you could either have a trucking company here, or you could have the option, if it makes sense, it has to make sense, it has to pass all the criteria, or you could consider some residential use. So I don't think that's not a negative thing. And when you move from a more aggressive type of industrial, and that's what's there now, industrial commercial uses, to a much more attractive, frankly, and less detrimental to the community, residential uses. I think it's something that's worthwhile considering. That's all I'm saying. So the two boards that considered so far unanimously supported, and they were participated by various departments, building inspectors, everybody else.
Just for clarification too. So just to be crystal clear, what they're asking for, I think, is nothing. You don't want to alter or change that residential uses in the business B zone are controlled essentially by the planning board. All you want to do is have the opportunity to have some of that residential property be on the first level of the building.
Correct.
As opposed to all of it being on upper levels.
Very well stated, Mr. President.
So in essence, I think this harkens back to the day when you had a bakery and on the second floor, there was an apartment or two. So the idea was those were typically in neighborhoods surrounded by residence B, residence C, whatever it might be. A long time ago, the city council determined, well, they should be able to make changes to the upper levels of those buildings for residential purposes. And none of that is changing based on your proposal.
That's correct. That's correct.
So all you're looking to do is say the first floor is in play too. Planning board has the authority to determine whether it makes sense or it doesn't make sense.
Correct.
That's it.
Better stated. Thank you, Mr. President.
I think I'm still having trouble with the word some. I mean, I'm looking for a definition, but maybe, but I just find a way to sort of make sure that even if we grant some relief, give you guys and other developers and other areas similar to this, an opportunity to be a little bit more flexible. I just don't want to lose the commercial component and see these BB districts just become totally residential. And again, I'm trying to find a way not to completely sort of abandon the intent.
I have an idea. What if it was the building, like in any business B, and if they have a bigger lot like ours, if it's the building that's on the main drive. In other words, if we said the Gateway building itself, which is going to remain the 3-story brick building, and it has, frontage on what's on the main street there, that one remains, you keep 20-25% commercial, and that's the way it's written. And the buildings in the rear of the property, however you state it, they're allowed to have residents on the first floor, which you wouldn't put commercial in anyway.
Could you live with an amendment that indicated that that 25% of the frontage building or be at least 25% be commercial?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. We could agree with something like that. So
does that help, Councilor?
It does. It helps me anyway.
That's our intent.
Let me go to other members of the council. Councilor Shalford's up.
Yep. Thank you very much. In thinking about this, I mean, I understand what you're trying to do. I agree with Mr. Bavenzi that I think housing is a real challenge for a lot of people, for us as a city here in Leominster. So I'm fully supportive of, housing that's done appropriately. And I think every, business area, BB is different. So I can see downtown, somebody might be trying to do something like that. And of course, we would want to retain, the storefronts on the street level. But I understand in your location, sir, I understand that, it's a completely different situation. So my question is, though, to Mr. Bravenzi, I'm looking at the zoning map and the gate, your building is in business B. It's surrounded by multi-use 1 in the back, right?
That's correct. Yes,
So
that's correct.
in talking about the building, we would want to put in housing behind the big brick building. Is that still in BB, or is that in the business zone, or is that in multi-use?
So it's in the business B, so there
Okay.
there are buildings in the back in business B that would have to be raised,
Okay,
and then new construction for residential would go there.
okay. So you're not trying to get involved at all in the multi-use
Correct.
one zone? Okay. Thank you. That's what I was trying to figure out.
This was a big discussion in our last meeting. For the record, it was a unanimous vote. I abstained only because, not
Right.
because I had any negative reaction to it. It was because I didn't think it was appropriate until we had a public hearing as a council. So I abstained from that vote for that purpose. But the housing committee does consist of the conservation agent, members of the planning board, the DPW, the building inspector. And that was all, they were all in perfect agreement that this is exactly what the housing component in the city is looking at. What we need to do to create some type of housing. And I think Mr. Boucher just said it in terms of having those as amenities, people that can go from that unit that live there, that can go to the fitness center and go to the restaurants. It's all within walking distance. And I think that goes back to the president said about the old days in the neighborhoods, with the housing, and everybody lived together and worked together in an area. So I think there was a lot of support for that on the housing committee. That's where the unanimous vote came from. But I wanted to be sure I clarified why my abstention was there, to not bypass the public hearing.
I still need to read these referrals into the record too. So, Councilor, the floor is yours.
I'm a little bit confused, Attorney Benzie. If you take this with existing zoning ordinances, take it to the planning board, and they approve it through the special permitting process, you can go ahead and do exactly what you're looking for. You can put all
Today?
today.
No,
They
because
can give you.
no. So the zoning today only allows you to have residential uses in the business B district on the second and upper floors.
They couldn't make an exception to that.
No, because no, they couldn't. And what we're asking is that they still, even to get that, the second through the upper floors, you need a special permit. We're saying just expand the special permit to allow it on the first and ground level floors if appropriate and within their discretion.
I think we all agree that housing is additional housing would be a benefit.
Okay. Yes.
Councilor Arjay. Councilor David Cormier.
Thank you very much. I definitely understand what you're trying to accomplish, and I think there in this spot it works. But my concern is that what if we sort of sell out too much of our business opportunities because residential is the hot thing right now, but it might not be in the future. I kind of like the idea of maybe considering, if you have buildings that sit
right,
that you sit right on the, right on the main drag, that we have a provision that you've got to keep a percentage, a certain way so that we can have business. And then certainly in the back, you're right. Most people probably wouldn't want to locate a business back there, and there'd be no reason why you couldn't have residential from top to bottom, but just a little nervous about, I kind of want to review the zoning map too, now that I understand what we're doing here.
I've done that, as I'm sure the chairman's done. This is not a prevalent zone in the city. Let me just say that.
That's what I'm thinking, but I
It's
just want to
not.
double check it.
Most of the business B, this I think is the largest business B parcel
Yeah.
in the city, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, most of them are pretty small. So I think to answer your concerned, Counselor, it sounds like the proponent is interested in that restriction. So I don't know if somebody wants to propose a motion. It sounds like they're interested in amending the petition such that I think the clarity would be that any any application to the planning board require that a building that is on street frontage have at least 25% of commercial use.
And I certainly understand the fact that, you know, it's a special permit of the planning board. There's a kind of like that,
Understood.
you know, there's a protection there, but, you know, I want to make sure that we are really protected by not even having the possibility of 100% of it in any way, shape, or form. That's all.
Anybody interested in making that motion? Either way, whatever you'd like.
All right,
You'll
just
hear
to
it.
get the referral, I think it may be helpful to some numbers.
Okay.
The first one I have is from Elizabeth Wood, Planning Director, dated January 11, 2024. Caitlin, please inform the council that the Housing Committee reviewed petition 22-24 at their meeting today and made a positive recommendation for the petition's approval. The second one is from Peter Nile, Building Commissioner. Members of the City Council, regarding petition 22-24, the cover letter states they are requesting a zoning change at 435 Lancaster Street, parcel 33-1. In bold letters, he has spot zoning. The registered voters that signed the petition are seeking to delete section 24.3.1 in its entirety, which affects all the BB zone properties. Article 3, section 22-17, table of uses already says that apartment slash multifamily dwellings are allowed with a special permit and site plan approval in the BB zone. If you have any questions or need further information, please feel free to contact my office. The third one is from the Planning and Development Director, addressed to Caitlin Huffman, City Clerk, dated January 16, 2024. Dear Caitlin, on January 8, 2024, the Planning Board voted 6-0 to make a positive recommendation to petition 22-24 to amend the zoning ordinance by deleting section 24.3.1 in its entirety and replace it with the following: residential uses in BB district are permitted with a special permit from the Planning Board. Don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. Elizabeth Wood, AICP Planning and Development Director. So we have that's it. So having read those referrals into the record, let me take a stab at the Frida.
To the chairman, I just wanted to point out that the building commissioner, I believe, voted in support at the housing committee for the recommendation of the housing.
Good point, Counselor. I was wondering if his referral actually explained anything to anybody, quite frankly.
Thank you for that clarification, Counselor. All right. So let's see. We go back to this. How does this sound to anyone or everyone? Request zoning change at 435 Lancaster Street, parcel 433-1, by
deleting. We're gonna delete the section that's
the existing language, which is 24.3.1, and replace it with residential uses.
Could I try this? Any application for a special permit and refer to the table of uses in the business B zone will require that the applicant maintain 25% commercial use on any structure along street frontage. or that is on the street frontage.
Madam Clerk, did you get that? Almost.
Yeah.
That any application for a special permit pursuant to the table of uses in the BB zone require that any structure on the street frontage maintain at least 25% commercial use. Makes sense to the petitioner?
Yes, yes, I'd be.
May I repeat that back to ensure I got it right? Any application for a special permit pursuant to the table of uses in the BB zone require any structure to have frontage, any structure on the street frontage,
To have a minimum of 25% commercial use.
have a minimum of 25% commercial.
Councilor Angelini?
That would be it.
I'll second that.
Any discussion? Frida?
Just a point of order, Mr. President. I'm not trying to be critical, but
That's
I think-
okay. You can.
I just think you need to be very careful that you as president should not be making these recommendations. That whole section that you just said should be coming from the chair of the committee.
Just trying to be helpful.
I know you're trying to be helpful.
I appreciate your point. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, any discussion?
Mr. President, I just wonder if that could be read back. I apologize for, if that could just be read back.
Sure, of course.
Any application for special permit pursuant to the table of uses in the BB zone require any structure on the street frontage to maintain a minimum of 25% commercial use.
Okay, and just point of clarification, could it be 25% of the commercial use on the ground level or street level? Because right now you can have with special permit.
On the ground level.
On the
frontage.
right now it says ground or street level, so 25% of the building would be residential. I mean, commercial, rather.
Right.
On the ground or street level.
Yeah, but that's the idea of that on the
Right,
frontage, right?
Right,
I mean,
but
that's-
not the whole building.
Right.
Right, correct.
And one more thing to clarify that. I have frontage on 2 streets. So some of the apartments, future apartments, may be situated where they have an entry or an exit on. That's kind of a big approval process at the planning board. We say main, can we say main borough?
Motion. Owner of the motion. You made the motion. I think they're asking to
Yeah, I'm trying
fine
to,
tune your motion.
You
Yeah.
do existing buildings, because that would
right, yeah,
just put existing in front of buildings.
yeah, right. It's already in use. so-
Right, the Duke, yeah, called the DuPont building. Show my age.
Councilor Kwame, are you still second?
I'm good with it. Yep.
I would just think that we should give this further time. Let the petitioner come back with the amendment, the way he understands what we're looking to do. And have him presented at the next meeting and be able to vote on it then. I mean, I don't think we should be doing that.
We're fine with that.
I think you should be putting it the way we want. We've told him what we expect. I think he should be.
Either way, we're fine with what.
Right, so procedurally, we have a motion that's been made and seconded. That up to I'll leave that to the chairman.
I'm comfortable moving forward with it right now. And I don't want to keep dragging this out. We're talking about a word, which would be the main thoroughfare. Existing building. So that's,
We're fine with it.
all right. We have a second?
I'm good. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Councilor Angelini, can you read what you have? Read.
Any application for a special permit pursuant to the table of uses in the BB zone require any structure on the street frontage to have a minimum of 25% commercial use on the ground level for existing buildings.
So existing before structure.
Any discussion before we vote on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, recognize the usual manner. Anyone opposed?
We have a discussion on that?
I just asked for discussion.
No, you didn't.
Yeah, I certainly did.
Oh, I missed that then.
That's okay. We'll
Should we be doing amendments during a public hearing?
we can reserve the amendment till the time till it comes up before us in the calendar. Good point. Okay. Anything else? Well, go to the public.
Sorry. I'm listening to the terms of the amendment and I'm actually, now that I've been reminded of the purpose of this, and it's just above the street. It's just so it'd be including the street level. So the only thing that we're changing is we're saying that this residential can be on the street level.
Yeah, that's it.
That's it.
So I'm at the point that I'm thinking that I would be in agreement with just permitting it on the street level with they're going to need special permits from planning. They're going to need site plans,
Right.
all that stuff. It seems a lot less complicated if this is our intent, is to allow this to happen, to put our faith into the planning board that they're going to fulfill what we want. We're only talking about ground level, street level property. Then I would just myself, I would feel better not going with all these amendments, but just allowing those to be permitted on the
All
first
right,
floor.
Counselor, hold that thought. What we're going to do is we're going to ask the chairman to go to the public. And then we're going to close this public hearing, potentially at least. And we'll take this all up in session and we'll hear motions and counter motions and whatever we're going to do. Okay?
All right. At this time, let me go to the public. Is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 22-24? For the second time, is there anyone in attendance this evening who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to petition 22-24? For the third and final time, is there anyone in attendance this evening that would like to speak either in favor of or in opposition to petition 22-24? Seeing none? Back one more time. Good. Okay. Then, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course, you may want to hang around. Okay, we're going to conduct the public forum. The public forum is an opportunity for any member of the audience to speak on a matter specifically listed on the council agenda. Speakers will be asked to come to the microphone and state their formal name and address along with identifying the specific item or items they wish to address. Each speaker is respectfully asked to keep their comments within a 2-minute time frame. Council will not be responding or answering any questions. However, at the discretion of the council president, clarification may be given. Is there any member of the public that wishes to address the city council on a matter on agenda this evening? Second time, any member of the public wish to address us in the public forum? And the third and final time, is there any member of the public that wishes to address us in the public forum? Seeing none, I will declare the public forum closed. And we will go into, we have no communications from the mayor. We will go into petitions first time on the agenda.
26-24, Jenny's Helping Hand, Inc. Request to renew license to deal secondhand articles at 52 Mechanic Street, Leominster, Mass.
26-24 is referred to the chairwoman of Ways and Means.
First time on the agenda, regular course.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. 27-24.
27-24, Anoush Jewelers requests to renew license to deal secondhand articles at 100 Commercial Road, Leominster, Mass.
27-24 is also referred to the chairwoman of Ways and Means.
First time on the agenda, regular course, please.
Very well. 27-24 is given regular course. Matters before the city council. Mr. Finance Chair, do you have a report for us?
I do, Mr. President. We started the fiscal year on July 1, 2023 with $21,785,513.54. To date, we've earned $273,870.57, giving us a total of $22,059,384.11. Pending the two communications we have, C-34 and C-35, provided that those successfully pass this evening and adding all up with the others that we've passed so far this year, we will have spent $3,765,000, and that will leave us with a balance of $18,293,784.11. And also, I just want to, I guess I'll do this now. The point that Councilor Frieda made about it was formally communication C-55, which was passed in late March of 2023, which was for $409,033.54. Councilor Frieda was asking how much of that we have recovered so far. So far, we have actually received $93,182.10. Pending coming back to us now is $237,992.41. And then after that comes back, they are going to pursue the remaining balance of $77,859.03 on that item that you were asking about, Councilor Frieda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
That is the financial report.
Financial report. Okay, let's move on to matters before finance, starting with C-34. You ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President. C-34, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests that the appropriation of $75,000 be made to the paramedics overtime expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. We have a letter here from Chief Sidlow, dated December 19th, 2023. Dear Mayor Mazzarella, the fire department requests a sum of $75,000 for overtime costs for paramedics. I am requesting this amount to be transferred to the discretion of the Comptroller's Office. Thank you for your continued support. Should you have any questions, please feel free to contact this office. So basically what is happening currently, we have 7 full-time paramedics on duty. We actually need a total of 8. And there, from what I am understanding, will be the 8th one will be added into the budget come July 1st. So for now, it has been the policy of the corner office to have 7 on and hire the 8th using overtime. So these overtime expenses are paying for that 8th person. There are 2 per shift, obviously 4 shifts. And also they do use overtime to cover vacation and if one of them is out sick as well. So that is the reason for this overtime. And it would be my recommendation that we grant C-34, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Pauline Cormier
I agree.
and Councilor Angelini.
I'm in agreement as well, Mr. President.
You've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-34. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-34, please recognize in the usual manner. Anyone opposed? I have vote of 9-0. C-34 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, order that the sum of $75,000 be made to the paramedics overtime expense account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
You've heard the request to adopt the order. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please say yay.
Yay.
Anybody opposed? By a vote of 9-0, the order has been adopted. Moving on to C-35, is the chairman ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President, C-35, Dean J. Mazzarella, Mayor, requests the appropriation of $16,500 to be made to the Department of Public Works street sign and fencing account, the same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. We have a letter here from the Director, Ray Racine. The appropriation will be used for the purchase of replacement and repairs of various street signs and city-owned fencing in the city. At the approximate halfway point of the fiscal year, the original budget of $16,500 has been exhausted, and additional funding is needed to continue through the remaining half of fiscal year 24. This year, we have seen a substantial increase in damages to city-owned signs and fences due to motor vehicle collisions in which motorists leave the scene and no police report or at-fault party is identified leaving the cost to repair the damages at the expense of the city. So basically, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. There's been quite a bit of damage to our signs and fences, and it would be my recommendation that we grant C-35, and I'll ask that you check with members of my committee.
Very well, Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
And Councilor Angelini.
I'm in agreement as well, Mr. President.
Heard the unanimous recommendation of the Finance Committee to grant C-35. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting C-35, please recognize in the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-35 has been granted. Does the chairman have an order?
Yes, Mr. President, ordered that the sum of the appropriation of $16,500 be made to the Department of Public Works Street Sign and Fencing account. The same amount to be transferred from the stabilization fund. Move for the adoption of the order.
We've heard the request for the adoption of the order on C-35. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the order, please say yay.
Yay.
Anybody opposed? The order has been adopted by a vote of 9-0. Now move on to the matters under legal affairs, beginning with 22-24. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. 22-24. Benzie and Donovan, attorneys at law, and 10 registered voters request a zoning change at 435 Lancaster Street, parcel 33-1. As you know, Mr. President, we had a public hearing early this evening. The petitioner and his attorney present making a presentation. I think we hashed out some language to accommodate the zoning change. Bert has read it as well. If you'd like, I can repeat it one last time.
If you're going to formally make the motion now, yeah, you should do that.
Okay, dope. So any application for a special permit pursuant to the table of uses in the BB zone require any structure on the street frontage to have 25% commercial use, ground level of any existing structure. Madam Clerk, did I miss anything there? We had a couple iterations of that, and I'm having a hard time reading my own writing.
No, mine's just slightly different. I have any application for special permit pursuant to the table of uses in the BB zone, require any existing structure on this with street frontage to have a minimum of 25% commercial use on the ground level.
Existing structure before I did that. Fine with me.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I think the clerk's is better grammar, actually, but it's okay. Can I make it clear that what we're doing here is deleting the existing section as well as part of your your motion and replacing it with the language?
We're deleting section 24.3.
All right, so you're making that motion for me.
I am.
And I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Council Shalfo Zephyr.
Thank you very much. I think that the amendment to mandate a 25%, set aside for commercial, in this kind of business B, I think is really arbitrary. I mean, we don't, in looking at the zoning map, the business B, the BB districts across the city are all very, very different. The Gateway area down on Lancaster Street is very different from over by the turnout in North Leominster, which is a BB zone, which is different from part of North Main Street, is different from downtown. So I think to come up, I understand that people are concerned about, we don't want to lose commercial space, because in the appropriate area, we really don't. Downtown, we want to have storefronts. We want those storefronts, with businesses in them and everything. But I think to make an arbitrary, 25% to apply to everybody across the city, to me, just doesn't make sense. They're all very, very different spaces. And I can see that kind of 25% mandate might work in some places and not others. And I think because the planning board is the special permitting authority, I would be comfortable letting them make the decision based on a proposal in front of them from a specific business B district. So, I'm not going to support the 25%. thinking more about it, I think it just doesn't necessarily fly across the city because they're all very, very different.
I'm going to what my Councilor Shalfo Zephyr had said. It's my opinion that if we are going to relinquish this, then we do it and we put our faith in the planning board. They need a special permit from the planning board. They need site plan approval. I suggest that I don't necessarily think that we need to make it more specific. I think we need to open it up. We're only talking about ground level here. And I agree. I don't know if that 25% is just going to end up being unused space where it could be used for something. So I think that if we're going to amend this and we're going to remove the part that says that they are not permitted, that we just leave it at that and we have our faith in the planning board and their requirements. So thank you.
Okay, Councilor Robbins.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thinking about it as well, I'm just going to echo similar feelings as the two councilors before me. As somebody who works on the front lines of the housing crisis every single day, I think taking away 25% that may end up sitting vacant is a little short-sighted. And I just would rather it be filled with people who are looking to live in our community anyways. So excuse me, I as well am confident and comfortable at leaving this with the planning board. So I won't support the amendment either.
All right.
I just want
Councilor
to
Angelini?
sure. Granted, I mean, these are zoned DV business. So if they're 10 acres, more than likely business is on them. That's why they're zoned DV. If they're 1 acre, there's business on them. So what I think my fear is we're going to lose the BV and end up with residential units and no business.
Yeah.
And we do need housing, but we need business as well. So I think, again, we spend a considerable amount of money to get consultants in here. We have public hearings. We go through a lengthy process. We adopt zoning, and then it seems like we're always trying to massage it in certain situations. And I think housing, yeah, I'm in favor of more housing too, but I don't want to see us lose the business component, the commercial component of these BB zones. Otherwise, why don't we just make them, let's have somebody come down and say, let's make these residential. Let's get rid of business and just build housing on them. If that's the intent, then let somebody come down and submit that petition. But as long as we have BB zones, we have to try to maintain the commercial use. If we're going to accommodate housing, that's fine, but we have to make sure that that business and the commercial component is still part of the BB zone. I mean, that's why it's called BB. But anyway, that's my explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilor Frida?
I tend to agree with 25%. I don't think it's necessary. I think planning board is quite capable of overseeing, and I think they look towards business as much as they look towards housing. And I think they're quite capable of maintaining that to be sure that there's no overtake of business community by residential housing. So I don't believe I'm going to support the amendment either. I think it's very clear what they're trying to do, and I think the biggest piece is throughout the city. I think there isn't one size that fits all. And I think we do need to be careful on how we do it. So I'm not supportive of the amendment.
Councilor Anger?
In the retrospect, yes, I listened to all this conversation. I've become more and more convinced that we're trying to make it more onerous than it has to be. And I would just support something you guys originally presented to us, where you just eliminate that one section and go with let the planning board do their job. I will not be supporting it either.
Okay, so anybody else before we vote? All right, so I'm going to do this by roll call. Councilor David Cormier on the amendment. Councilor David Cormier?
Yay.
Councilor Kelly?
Nay.
Councilor Arndinger?
Nay.
Councilor Angelini?
Yay.
Councilor Tossi?
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr?
Nay.
Councilor Robbins?
Nay.
Councilor Frida?
Nay.
I will be quoted as yay. The amendment fails by, I think, a vote. 4, right? 5 or whatever. So the amendment fails. Mr. Chairman, do you have a recommendation in light of the failure of the amendment?
Could entertain another motion? Can't do that.
No, well, you could, but I mean, I think it's clear what the majority of the council wants.
Yeah. Oh. Someone want to propose? Want to go with the original? With someone hearing that, I think the original petition as written is what we want to, they want to adopt.
That's what's on the table, which eliminates that language on ground floor.
Well, I would be happy at this point to cede to the nay and
Recommend it.
recommend it. And adopt the original.
I'll check with the other members of your committee, which are Mr. Lees, Councilor Robert Tossi.
Agreed.
And Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
All right, so what's before us now is a unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to grant 22-24. Is there any further discussion on that? Yeah, I'm going to do it by roll call. It requires 6 votes, as you all know. Councilor David Cormier,
Nay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier,
Yay.
Councilor Frank Arninger,
Yay.
Councilor Angelini,
Yay.
Councilor Tossi,
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr,
Yay.
Councilor Robbins.
Yay.
Councilor Frida. Yay. I'll be recorded as yay by a vote of granted. Thank you, gentlemen. Councilor Angelini, 25-24.
Thank you, Mr. President. 25-24. Peter A. Angelini, Ward 5 Councilor, requests to revise the amended Leominster City zoning, city ordinance by inserting a new section regarding short-term rental units. See attached. As you're aware, Mr. President, we had a public hearing that we left open early this evening. The planning board asked for my presence to explain, make a presentation, answer questions of the planning board before they offer their referral on petition 25-24. So it would be my recommendation to give 25-24 further time and be sometime after the, obviously, the February meeting. And I would ask you to check with members of my committee.
Will, I think we're going to be continuing the public hearing as well. Recommendation for that.
The planning director also informed me that the housing committee is going to take this up on their February 29th meeting. Did you want to push it past that or before?
I'm gonna go before that.
Okay. So we are looking at our next meeting, or first meeting in February will be the 12th. And we have nothing scheduled so far, so 6:50 p.m. 6:50.
Thank you.
So your recommendation is for further time and to establish a continued public hearing on February 12th at 6:50?
That's correct.
Just go check with members of your committee. Councilor Tossi
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
Your unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to give 25-24. I'm sorry, Councilor Frida.
That's all right. Through the chair with the legal affairs chair, consider my request to have the department heads come in to have a discussion about what their recommendations are.
No, I'm trying to move this ahead. We have people that are in dire need of this ordinance to be implemented. I can't be waiting months and months to get this passed, so I'm going to proceed. I'm going to attend the planning board hearing, get their referral. I'm going to come back and ask that we move the question.
Through the chair, may I respond?
Of course, I can.
I fully understand we have a couple that we feel are in dire need, but we're talking about an ordinance that's going to affect the entire city.
I understand that.
And I think if we have a building inspector, if we have a planning board, if we have a health department and a fire department they're all confused about what we're trying to do. I think, well, you're saying that you don't agree with their recommendations.
No. You just said the fire department is in agreement. The police department's in agreement.
they're in agreement, but that was, they talked about Airbnb and the building inspector called it a rooming house with locked bedrooms. That's
Yeah.
completely different to what we're talking.
That has nothing to do with my petition, Counselor. Apparently the building
I
inspector,
mean,
the building inspector didn't respond to code violation. It's nothing to do with my
I have a
petition.
suggestion. Perhaps you could ask them to attend the planning board hearing.
they could, but I think they should be here with, during our public. That's
Well, let's start with them attending the planning board hearing. I mean, there's nothing stopping them from,
would be up to the planning board whether.
I'm sure the planning board, they want to hear from Councilor Angelini. I'm sure they'd want to hear from the department heads.
I mean, I fully appreciate this. I'm not minimizing the issue with this couple. That by no means am I doing that. But we are talking about something for the whole city. Maybe there's something else that could help them without having an ordinance put in place. It's going to take another month anyway.
Well, if the building inspector had read the petition, you wouldn't have written the referral that he did. So, I mean, will he even show up? I don't know. He's
I would strongly suggest that the clerk send a letter to, who would you like to see? Building inspector?
Well, I
the
think
health department?
everybody that the chair felt misinterpreted his original request.
Please invite them to the
Building.
planning board hearing.
Building, health,
And if they feel,
planning will be there.
okay, if they feel they want to come here on the 12th and they want to address us, I will certainly go ask for a motion to recess, and I will certainly listen to them, like I'm sure the rest of us will. Council Shalfo Zephyr?
Thank you very much. Since we're having a public hearing on the 12th anyways, why don't we invite them down? I mean, I don't see any harm in that. We're having a public hearing on the petition. Hopefully, you know, to wrap it up. They should attend both. They should attend both.
We're the ones
We'll
that
all
are
be
dealing
interested.
with this petition.
Yeah.
So we're the ones that need to hear the
All right.
responses
We,
before
all
we vote.
right, so we've resolved it.
Good.
Okay, so we're
coming to vote.
going to have an invitation to all those public officials to attend both meetings, 5th and the 12th. All right, so back to business. The recommendation with that proviso is for a further time for 25-24, with a continued public hearing on the 12th of February at 6:50. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please recognize usual manner. Anyone opposed? All right, that's done. Moving on to public service, is the chairman of public service ready to report?
Yes, Mr. President.
And you can just summarize this. You don't have to read the whole.
Okay. This is a petition 19-24, Massachusetts Electric Company, DBA National Grid requests permission to locate poles, wires, and fixtures, including the necessary sustaining and protecting fixtures along and across the following public way. Whitney Street to install one solely owned pole on Whitney Street beginning at a point approximately 205 feet south of the center line of the intersection of Water Street and continuing approximately 20 feet in a direction, west direction. Install one pole to provide service for parking lot chargers, location approximately as shown on plan attached. We had a public hearing earlier today with a representative from National Grid present who explained exactly that. This is a pole that will go at the parking lot on Water Street with some electric parking chargers. We have received referrals back both from the wire inspector and the DPW director with positive recommendations and some conditions from the DPW director that National Grid has indicated they have met or they will be able to meet. Seeing such, my recommendation will be to grant, and I will ask that you check with the other members of my committee.
Very well. Councilor Frida? Council Shalfo Zephyr?
I agree as well.
All right, so you've heard the unanimous recommendation of the Public Service Committee to grant 19-24. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of granting 19-24, please recognize the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, 19-24 has been granted. Moving on to the City Property Committee, C-36, is the chairman ready to report?
Are hereby deemed to the needs of the city and to authorize the mayor to pay, fee in, and two, and or easements in said parcels on such terms and conditions or such consideration as the mayor deems appropriate. One, fee in, and two, a parcel of land located on at Jungle Road, Leominster, containing 20,750 square feet, more or less, shown on a plan recorded with the Worcester County Registry of Deeds, Worcester North Registry of Deeds, in Plan Book 283, page 18, being a portion of the premises as described in an instrument recorded in Book 1283, page 196, reserving to the city, if needed, a permanent easement to flow stormwater from Jungle Road to Old Mill Road into said parcel of land. And two, a permanent, non-exclusive easement in, on, and under a portion of or portions of the parcel of land located off Jungle Road, containing approximately 21,000 square feet for utility and or withdrawal purposes. This was given regular course on 1/8, and we had requested a number of referrals, which I believe I have to read into. First, which that I have here is a letter from the mayor that says, I am respectfully responding to the request from Council Thomas Artington with a map of the parcels of lands for the purpose of the communication. This surplus declaration is being sought for the parcel of land on the attached map J1 as noted in book 1283, page 196 for two reasons. First, since the city acquired the land for public way purposes, the city council as body in charge of public ways in the city needs to declare such lands as surplus lease to the city that the parcel is no longer required for public way purposes. Further, any time prior to the sale of property, custodial board here, the city council, further to any time prior to the sale of the property, the custodial board here, the city council needs to declare the property surplus and available for sale. Parcel will be sold subject to an easement retained by the city to use the parcel for draining stormwater from Jungle Road and other public ways. The buyer will be responsible for constructing, repairing, and maintaining stormwater infrastructure and improvements to the city's need for further improvements in the area that continues to be developed. And with that, he gave us a map showing the plot, parcel J1 at the corner of Jungle Road and Old Mill Road that everybody has, I believe, in their folders. And along the same line, I have a letter from the mayor. Dear members of the city council, this is dated January 22nd, 2024. Dear members of the city council, I am respectfully responding to the request from city council to Chalaco's effort for more information. J1 is noted in book 1283, page 196, is being sold to Capital Properties Group, LLC, for their purpose of building a 67,500 square foot facility to be used as a warehouse for future tenants and the neighboring at the neighboring property of 21 Jungle Road, parcel 301-1. Construction of the facility is subject to the stormwater standards they need for parcel J1 for stormwater infrastructure to satisfy those requirements. And let's see. Good. We have a letter here from Raymond Racine, DPW Director, dated January 9th. And it says, Dear Caitlin, Leominster Department of Public Works has reviewed the communication to grant the transfer of the City Council for public way, the purpose to the mayor for the general municipal purpose, and for the purposes of conveyance the parcels of land described in Communication C-36, which are hereby deemed surplus to the needs of the city, and to authorize the mayor for the convey the fee in and to and or easements in said parcels as such terms and conditions for such consideration as the mayor deems appropriate. And then we have a referral from the assessor's office. It says the assessor's office sees no issue with the transfer of the city council for the public way, the purpose to the mayor, to the mayor for general municipal purposes and to the purpose of conveyance the parcels of land located on Jungle Road, Leominster, containing 20,750 square feet more or less, as shown on plan 238, book 18, Worcester District, registered to be. So with that being said, I believe that is all the referrals we have on that map. And if you look at the map, we have just a small triangle of land that is kind of, in between what I think at one time used to be the intersection of Dungle and Mill Road. It has since been changed. And my recommendation would be that we grant this. And I'd ask you to check with the other members.
Sure. Councilor Robbins
I agree.
and Councilor Tossi. Heard unanimous recommendation of the City Property Committee to grant C-36. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Frida.
Out of curiosity through the chair, you mentioned that it's not now the corner anymore?
Look at the map. Looks like it's the
Change the layout of the road.
layout of the map.
Yeah, but not that. I think that that triangular piece is still, I can remember when we bought that property back in the 90s from Tony Whitten. I was Attorney DeCarolis' old house, if you recall, way back
Yeah.
when.
I remember.
And Tony Whitten bought it from him. And we needed that piece of land. Obviously, we don't need it anymore, but I would hope we don't need it anymore. But I can remember when we purchased it from Tony because the DPW felt we needed it.
What happened was the 1985 layout of Jungle Road changed the position of the roadway. It looks like further south and west from where the 1958 layout was. And as a result, there's a triangle now that's sort of an island that is of no use to the city for public way purposes, given the 1985 layout. That's basically what happened. Anything else? Okay. We have a unanimous recommendation. All those in favor of granting C-36, please recognize in the usual manner. Anyone opposed? By a vote of 9-0, C-36 has been granted. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Moving on to new business, we have the first reading of an ordinance. Is the chairman ready to read?
I am, Mr. President. Thank you. The first reading of an ordinance formerly known as petition 24-24. An ordinance, the year 2024. An ordinance, be it ordained by the City Council of the City of Leominster as follows. Amending Chapter 2, Articles 26 of the revised ordinances entitled Cemetery Commission. Chapter 2, Article 26, Section 2-105 of the revised ordinances entitled Established. Appointment in terms of members is hereby amended by deleting said subsection in its entirety and inserting in its place the following text. There shall be a cemetery commission consisting of 5 persons appointed by the mayor, subject to confirmation by the city council, for terms of 3 years. Of the members first appointed, 1 member shall be appointed for a term of 1 year, 2 members for a term of 2 years, and 2 members for a term of 3 years. Thereafter, all members shall be appointed for terms of 3 years. Upon the expiration of any such 3-year term, the position is to be filled by mayoral reappointment as stated in Section 2.3 of the Leominster Home Rule Charter, or if reappointment is not made at the expiration of the 3-year term, the position is considered vacant and must be filled by temporary appointment as defined by Section 2.5 of the Leominster Home Rule Charter. Mr. President, it would be my recommendation that we adopt the first reading of this ordinance, and I would ask you to check with members of my committee.
Councilor Tossi
I agree.
and Councilor Pauline Cormier.
I agree.
We've had unanimous recommendation of the Legal Affairs Committee to adopt the first reading of an ordinance formerly 24-24. Any further discussion? Seeing none, this will be by roll call. Councilor David Cormier,
Yay.
Councilor Pauline Cormier,
Yay.
Councilor Ardinger,
Yay.
Councilor Angelini,
Yay.
Councilor Tossi,
Yay.
Councilor Shalfo Zephyr,
Yay.
Councilor Robbins,
Yay.
Councilor Frida.
would agree with 5. I would have preferred 3, but I will agree with 5.
Thank you, and I will be recorded as yay. I think that's 90.
Yes.
All right. Do we have anything under the community calendar? Council Shalfo Zephyr.
I'm not sure if this goes under the I think this is new business. I think this letter from the,
It's not on the agenda. If you want to discuss it under the community calendar, I will permit that, but really not on the agenda.
all right, I'll discuss it under the community calendar then.
Well, we are.
Which,
so-
yeah, okay. This is, everybody got copies tonight. I mean, we all did get the email last week. And this is a letter from a social worker, Ms. Sophie Casella, licensed independent clinical social worker from Franciscan Children's Hospital, regarding an urgent request for housing support for a Leominster family. I took a look at it last week. I mean, it's it's a very sad story. A Leominster family with a very sick little 1-year-old baby who's been in intensive care in the hospital for a very long time is in need of housing because given the child's medical equipment requirements and medical care requirements, I guess the social worker did a visit to the home. The home was deemed wasn't up to standards, I guess, for the care of this particular little baby. I reached out, having like the council to my left, worked on housing for a long time. So reached out to a couple of my resources and was surprised. Spanish American Center usually has resources and can refer people. They don't at this point. I think they're just straight out. I did end up referring this woman to our state representative who does a lot of work with finding shelter and homes for people. And I know that she is working closely with this social worker. So she's taking care of our residents. So I just want to let everybody know that Representative Higgins, is working on this actively. So I just want to let everybody know that.
Thank you for bringing that to the attention of the public. If there's somebody out there, a landlord, that has a suitable housing unit for this, it is a terribly sad story.
Tragic situation.
I'm sure that that landlord could contact Representative Higgins' office.
Absolutely, please do.
So Shalfo Zephyr, they can help. This is definitely a deserving family. All right, anything else in the community calendar, Councilor Frida?
Doesn't qualify for community calendar either, but just to
Take a shot.
report. Mass Municipal Conference.
Okay, that's
Excellent.
that's in there.
Kind of, yeah, we can stretch it, I guess. I just wanted to commend, the mayor was due to do a presentation on a workshop that was what to expect when you're not expecting weather was the title. And he was detained, so the last minute, Arthur Ebersol from Emergency Management did the presentation. If anybody would like to look at it, all the workshop presentations are on the Mass Municipal website, so you'd be able to catch what was presented. He did a tremendous job. He was on the panel with Bruno from the DPW director from Franklin was the moderator, and Sean Sahaki from, he's at Athol now, but he was in Sturbridge at the time when they had a hurricane go through there. So it was on their community. So I just wanted to commend Arthur on doing a tremendous job, and the governor and the lieutenant governor and Senator Markey and Senator Warren. There should be a lot of money coming our way if it goes through everything. Leominster will be, it's already in the supplemental budget. It's $5 million being put aside for damages that were received in September. They just allocated, Pittsburgh is going to get $1 million for damages that they sustained earlier in the year. So they will determine the amount of money the other communities get by August, I think, and what the amount will be. So we will have part of that $5 million, and I'm going to guess it'll be substantial because there aren't as many communities as it's worth the fact. Local aid they're looking to increase. I mean, that's all part of her budget that she's going to submit, so it's all going to matter where it comes from. But they are very much on a track of being oriented to local government. They've done a tour of going out to the communities and what we like to see. One of the things that I've been bringing up a lot when we've hired people is a real MMA concern for the past couple of years that there is nobody going into local government jobs. Nobody wants to be a controller. Nobody wants to be a treasurer. There are going to be incentives because. What's that?
I'm being smart. I says, I don't know why that is.
Oh. They're going to try to incentivize it by paying some tuition reimbursements or doing something. But at one time, everybody wanted to work in City Hall. Now nobody wants to. So it's going to become serious if people aren't in those positions. So it was a good conference, and people can look at it on the MMA side.
Well, thank you for letting us know of the good work of our department head of emergency management. It's always good to hear. We'll all be anxiously awaiting the governor's budget, including the ability for us to tax our citizens instead of them taxing. Okay, anybody else? Yes, Council Shelton.
I was just going to reiterate what the council to my left said about the emergency management, the department head. He did an excellent job. He really did. And he was pinch hitting, I think, for the mayor. So he came there along with Wendy Weeks, and they did the city proud. They really led people through the process and told everybody what they learned, how they could better plan, for this kind of thing. So they did an excellent job, and I think he should be commended.
Made a motion to adjourn. Councilman Deline.
The Leominster City Council meeting is funded in part by DeCarolis Insurance Agency at www.decarolisinsuranceagency.com and by Avidia Bank at www.avidiabank.com.